TV and radio presenter Carol Vorderman. She's whinging about what she calls Tories at the top of the BBC. I don't remember seeing any of those. Who got rid of her?
Carol Vorderman, of course, now presents on a commercial radio station. As she says, she's absolutely loving the freedom and that the BBC's social media guidelines try to restrict people's private lives.
So the former BBC executive and presenter Roger Bolton joins us. Roger, I thought she would have understood when you work at the BBC, presenting a show as she was on Radio Wales, whether it's Radio Wales or Radio 1, it is important that presenters are impartial. Now, I appreciate Gary Lineker takes no notice of that edict, but she, I thought, would understand it.
Well, you would have thought so. By the way, there are Tories at the top of the BBC. The Director General is a former Conservative candidate, I think, and was on the council, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah, but he's a minority, let's be honest, Roger. Tim Davie is not typical of the mindset of most people at the BBC.
That is certainly your view. Now, as regards Carol Vorderman, I mean, yes, she should have known. I mean, this is very difficult. You know, if the BBC gets rid of Carol Vorderman, it's down for stopping free speech. If it doesn't, and it lets her speak and whatever, it gets down for being left-wing and so on. So it's tried to produce guidelines which say that people in news and current affairs shouldn't express their views at all. And also people presenting major shows, Match of the Day, people who appear to be speaking, you know, the figureheads of the BBC, they shouldn't either. But on the other hand, there is a real issue here about freedom of speech. If you've got somebody who's a freelance broadcaster who's doing lots of other things, are they to be silent in the rest of their life because they present a programme on the BBC? So it's difficult. It's a difficult area. But I mean, I think what Carol is clearly a campaigner. And fine. She's good. Maybe she should come on your show and present one of your programmes. But she's got a book coming out in the autumn, which is called Out of Order, What's Gone Wrong with Britain, and One Woman's Mission to Fix It. Well, fine, but she can't pretend she's not participating in the political debate, can she?
And you can't. And the point is, Roger, you can't have it both ways if you're on the BBC. It's a very special and unique position to be on the BBC, funded by the licence-payer, i.e. the taxpayer.
Well, it is, but as I tried to say, free speech is a real issue, which I know you care about genuinely. So you can't say, because Andrew Pearce is now going to be given a job in the BBC 1 day a week, he should shut up for 6 days a week, or the same with you, Deb. It's a really difficult issue. But on the other hand, well, I mean, you know, ask them. They're a bit short, some talent in some areas, in my view. But anyway, but if you're in current affairs, of course, on news, you shouldn't. And so it's in that difficult area. Social media has presented a raft of problems that nobody thought of 20, 30 years ago.
But do you think, Roger, so do you think that if you're, say, an entertainment presenter on the BBC or a sports presenter on the BBC, you should be held to different standards in terms of what you can and can't say on social media than the news team?
I think so. Although I think if you're something like Gary Lineker, where you're there every week and people do see you, even though you do other things and work for the broadcasters, as the face of the BBC, then you've got to be concerned about the way in people will regard the BBC. You're not helping the BBC if people look at you and think, oh, well, you're a lefty or right, or whatever you are, and therefore you're typical of the BBC. You know, the BBC's hard enough job in the present climate to persuade people that it tries to be as objective as possible. So I think those people who paid a lot of money by the BBC ought to bear that in mind. Equally, it would be a monstrous invasion of free speech if because you, as I said, or even me, unlikely, were employed 1 day a week for the BBC, we had to shut up about everything for 6 days. Because we
couldn't shut up for 6 hours, Roger.
No, but she's quite funny, you know.
No, I was talking about Bev.
I've always liked Carol Vorderman. Before this, I thought, you know what, she's a strong woman, she's a smart woman, she's pushed her way forward in life, she's done very, very well, she's reinvented on occasions. My particular issue with Carol Vorderman is she kept quiet during a time in which celebrities balancing the narrative were very much needed, and I mean during the pandemic. She kept her head down, she towed the narrative line, she didn't ever upset anybody, and then suddenly she's now coming out and criticising Sunak, criticising everyone during the pandemic. I'm like, where were you for those 2 years? You just very much did what the establishment, capital E, wanted, and she's doing the same again now because she's teeing herself up for a job in the Labour Party.
Well, there are lots of establishments around, aren't there? You make probably part of one. You know, you have the privilege of broadcasting, so you're part of a broadcasting establishment. Listen, I'll have a bet with you. In 2 years' time, I bet you, before then probably, but in 2 years' time, Carol Vorderman will be attacking the next government, which is probably going to be Labour, very hard indeed. So in 2 years' time, if I'm still around, ask me back and let's check.
OK, all right, Roger, thank you so much.